Hi, this is Spud TV again. I'm John Cornett. I'm the host. Everything in Idaho with Bud on it, or anything in Kuna with gravy. I would like to introduce my son, Jeremy Paul Cornett. If he's my co-host today, and then if you bring the camera back to me, I'm going to introduce my friend, Roger. Can you introduce yourself and your title?
I'm Roger Gibson. I have a degree in agronomy, Dr. Roger Gibson.
That's good.
And no, okay.
Yeah, but no, okay. So that's your degree. I'm proud of the degree. But you're here to talk to me about what today?
We're here to talk about the prison ministry and what the chaplains and the spiritual advisors do in the state prisons.
And who's our guest next to you? I know him too.
Sean DeLisle.
And Sean, what's your experience with?
Well, I've had a experience being in prison, and Roger here is a friend of mine that I've known since I was 19 or so, and he's been in the ministry a long time, and we're friends out here on the streets.
Out in the real world?
Yes.
So Roger is a person that goes in the prison as a minister. You were a reciprocal, maybe not from Roger, but from other people that did the same.
Yes.
Weren't you telling me that you accepted the Lord?
Yes, I was in Walla Walla prison in Washington State in 1998. I came to know the Lord.
And what were you in prison for?
For grand theft.
Oh, really? And so it was like a year after you got in there, you started looking into the Lord, and you.
Yes, after I had been in there, I had 8 years I had to do in Idaho, and I met the Lord there and continued my walk after I got out.
Okay. So now, were you ever in prison here in Idaho?
Yes.
Well, when were you?
I was here for 8 years.
For 8 years, okay.
Yeah.
So Roger, tell me about how you got involved with the ministry. How did you get your religious experience? How did you get involved with the Lord in the first place?
Well, I graduated from high school, and I accepted the Lord at that time. Started working in the church, and when I got married, my wife and I started working the streets of Chicago.
On your own?
On my own. And my two sons were involved in that. And we helped out the youth of the ghettos and bringing them in and giving them something to do so they would not be going into the gang activities and stuff in that area, in the Cabrini Greens area.
God's gang, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. Now, growing up, you said you were adopted by a family?
Yes, I was adopted when I was 2. I grew up with a family over at Kuna.
And they were pretty religious?
Pretty much. Grew up in the Methodist Church, and after I left the Methodist Church, I went into the Assembly of God Church and started working a little bit towards the ministerial end of things, working with the different churches. I've helped establish 3 churches and helped solve issues in 2 other churches.
Well, that's good. So you're a church counselor.
But
no, and so let me sum up what you're saying is that even though you were adopted you were lucky enough the Lord led you into a family that had God as a prime focus point. You were educated in the public school system, but you still got your theological training, well, not theological, but spiritual training at home and at church on Sundays.
That's correct.
Your mom and dad probably were involved in the Methodist Church in Kuna. I live in Kuna.
Yes.
So I know a little bit about the Methodist Church. In fact, last time I talked to them, they had a lady minister. So
yes.
From there, you went to college, but you still had an yearning to help to serve the Lord. You kept involved in your church.
Yes, I did.
And so now you've had outreach for young, troubled people. Now you're helping adults. And you're telling me you were helping out people in jail as well in the pen?
Okay, I work also, I help people as I'm notified from Payette County to Elmore County in the jail systems. I teach a class Monday nights at the Idaho Department of Corrections at the farm.
Now, what is these classes? It's like Bible class, or is it baptism class?
IDOC is a Bible class and kind of a counseling a little bit. Those in the jails, I make contact with them and counsel them as I can. Help establish it, give them an idea that somebody cares about them.
That's good.
And also we've started working a little bit with the youth over at the juvenile correction facility in Nampa.
You help 'em. Now, Sean, you're telling me your experience now. So you were kind of a rebel growing up. You got along with your mom and dad pretty well?
Not so much. No, I was also in a foster home, and I was raised by Christian foster parents. And then when I was 9 or so, my real mother and my stepfather came and got all their children back and brought them back into a dysfunctional home.
Okay.
And through that, I decided that going to jail and juvenile prisons and prison wasn't any worse than being at home. So
I mean,
I chose it as a lifestyle.
okay, so it was almost like better than being at home, maybe.
I wouldn't say it was better, but it wasn't any worse.
It wasn't any worse, okay. And so then, so you had a foundation, of a Christian foundation from
I
that
did.
foster. And so when you were down and out, you turned to the Lord for help,
Yes.
and you re-acknowledged your relationship with Him.
Yes.
Were there people in Washington, were they coming out to visit you? Obviously it wouldn't be our friend here, Roger, but was other ministers coming out?
Yes. Most every church, is involved in the prison ministry in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, you're telling me Wicca.
Wicca's not a religious organization. It's more of a cult fascist that is given strength by just the members that are in it. They don't really have leaders and
But do they have a representative in the prison? That can
yes, they have representatives that bring them the incense and the things that they need to use it for their
for their practice.
practice. Yeah.
I wonder if the Buddhists are in the prisons. Okay. So I want to get the correct view here. So then how did you decide to accept the Lord? I mean, had somebody come in and preach to you, or did you go to this Bible study?
Just by a process of just living my life for myself and not having any stability and always ending up in prison and on drugs. I just couldn't stand to be in my own skin anymore, and I just gave up, and I cried out to God, a God that I didn't know existed and I never believed in, except for Bible stories when I was little. And as the Bible says, that God will reveal Himself to you if you ask Him who He is, and with a pure heart. And that's what I did. And He revealed Himself to me that He was real. And since that time, my life hasn't changed a great deal. I still have all my same problems I had. As a drug addict, and as being in prison my whole life and being dysfunctional and being able to live on the streets with the mainstream society. I have all those problems still, but instead of turning to drugs now, I have the Bible to read and turn to the Bible and people that are like-minded.
Well, a lot of people, when they'll say, well, Jesus didn't solve this problem for me, or He didn't do this for me, but He's somebody to help us solve our problems. I know a lot of people say, well, we still die, so why is there a God? But, the thing is, to read the original Christians, especially back in Roman times, I read one place that a third of the population die in a year or in a few years. It wasn't uncommon. Life expectancy wasn't that bad.
Right.
The difference is, like one of the Christian bishops was writing saying, at least we know where we're going to go. Everybody else is not going to go to a paradise. Life and death was more of a reality than they have here in America today. And what I'm trying to say with that is, even though you're going to still have problems, God gives you a way to work it out. And it might be a better way than just taking drugs or taking alcohol.
It's absolutely a better way.
But now, so with ministry, from our friend here, these do send hope to people that are in the pen? They're not forgetting about?
Yes, absolutely. A visit from, somebody that just a perfect stranger to come see you, take time out of their day every day, and to come see you, somebody that you don't know, that means the world to you when you're in there seeing the same old faces every day, all day long.
What was a day like in the pen?
I guess it would be like a day spent in this room here that we're in, and
The whole day?
yeah, just not be able to do anything or go anywhere other than where somebody tells you to go and tells you what to do and when to do it, when to eat, when to sleep, when to, you know, that's just...
If I wanted to go get after the cameras are off, I can go in, get me a glass of water and drink it. Would I have to ask permission to go do that?
No.
Or have to go to the
No,
bathroom?
it's not like that. It's basically like the Army, except for the people that are in prison aren't serving their country. They're actually weighing down their country.
Okay. So,
I mean, it's ran the same way, though, military style. You have direct orders to go to point A to point B to point C, be where you're supposed to be at all times, you know, just like the military would be.
that helps control the people.
Yes.
Jeremy, do you have anything to say yourself? Suggestions or questions?
Well, no. Pretty much the small amount of time that I spent in jail, you know, you were given the opportunity to, you know, eat, but only if you woke up on time. They wouldn't actually, you know, try to give you a warning as to when it was going to be. They wouldn't even try to let me know it was time for me to take my meds. And so if I wasn't awake at that time, then I would miss my meds and stuff. And so...
So now, did you have any experience with people coming in and visit you for, I forgot you were in jail. I didn't know about that. Surprise, surprise. Good. Did you have anybody come visit you in jail, in the ministry or anything?
No. Actually, no, I never had anybody do that, but there was one instance where I wound up in, you know, hospital, and pastor came all the way down from Cambridge, you know, to Boise to visit me.
What religion?
You know, honestly, I can't remember.
Was he Seventh-day Adventist or?
No.
Seventh-day Adventist, right?
No, not an Adventist, but just a friend, you know, and he took the time to come on down, and like he said, you know, when things are really going rough for you, and you have some spiritual counselor, you know, to come down and give you words of encouragement, words of hope. Even in the darkest times, you still feel the presence of God inside of you, and you know that you have something to live for and something to look forward to.
So Roger, now how do you feel about it when you're ministering to these people? Now realize if you've been put in the wrong home, or if you maybe stayed with your birth mother and dad, your choices might have been different.
Oh, definitely they would have been. What we try to do is to show them friendship, you know, and get acquainted with them. We try to teach the gospel to them and help them out with their problems as much as we can. You know, we have certain limitations, rules we have to follow. But we do the best we can.
What are some of the rules?
We can't, the inmates would like us to write their families and stuff for them and
So
stuff like that, and we're not allowed to make contact with their families other than if we're studying a class in the system, I can send a book to their family so that they can study it and talk with their spouses, you know, when they make the local phone calls and stuff.
That makes sense. Okay, so now if let's say Sean was in the pen and I knew you, I'd say, hey, Roger, give Sean this book. You couldn't deliver it for him, for me? When you go out to visit him, you were visiting him?
No.
No, we could not. What you'd have to do is have the book sent from a publisher or a bookstore.
A brand new book?
Yeah, directly to Sean.
Directly to Sean.
You know, and then they would check it over and put his name in it, and that would be his book, you know. because if he didn't have his name in it, then they'd confiscate it.
Because it would be maybe stolen or something.
Yeah.
How about if I give you $5 and say, give that to Sean when you see him again? Would that be legal?
No, it would not be.
Not allowed to pass anything from the volunteers, not anything. Not a pencil, not money, not a phone number, not messages, anything. They're there strictly for the certain purpose of sharing the gospel,
With you.
reading, and educating. Anything devious from there is against the rules.
But now you said the Wiccans could get their religious supplies from their members out on the...
Right.
Yes, they could, just as Catholics can get their beads in,
Okay, so...
and we can get our books in, you know, to teach out of and stuff like that.
Okay, so religious paraphernalia that's related just to your purpose is allowed in?
Yes, and then we can also donate to the prison library.
A particular book? And then
A
if the person
particular
wants...
book, you know, through
Yeah.
the religious coordinator, they approve of it and then stick it in the library.
I used to know a pastor's fan that said he was a chaplain out there for a while.
Mhm.
What is the diagram? Do they have an employee that is a chaplain or a religious coordinator?
Well, they've removed the name chaplain because of the lawsuits, I think, of the ACLU. And it's a religious coordinator because it's Christian and non-Christian groups that he regulates.
It's like we said, Wicca or Buddhist.
Yeah, Wiccan
maybe,
or Buddhist or Muslim or American Indian.
Native.
We all share the
Native
same building. We have to all
Yeah.
share the same buildings and have services at different times.
That makes sense. Well, we're all a big community. So, so then what's it like for you when have you had people actually accept the Lord?
Yes, we have, and
front of
that's the reward I get out of it.
What was it like? Can you kind of set the stage? I don't want to hear any names because that would be breach of privacy, but...
Yeah. No, we talk to the people, you know, we've led several to the Lord. But what's interesting with the group that I work with, most of the people come into the chapel having accepted the Lord because they were led by the people we have taught.
So you see a ripple effect then?
Yeah, because we tell the guys, you know, we can't go out in the general population or at the prison and evangelize or anything like that, but you can.
So if did you notice the difference between other inmates that accepted the Lord and the ones that didn't, Sean, when you were in the pen?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a difference. They're more outgoing. They have more goal oriented, and just people. There's a little bit more hope in them. You know?
A little more sense of
Absolutely.
purpose.
Yeah, more purpose is hope, and they're just not, you know, beat down by the fact that they're, you know, in prison doing time for something they've done wrong. They have hope, and
That's good.
you know, and that's really what sets them apart.
It's if my son did something wrong, heaven forbid, you wouldn't have to worry about the court, you'd have to worry about me. Anyhow, and he ended up having to go to pen. What would be advice for you to give to him?
Read the Bible since you have time to do it. You know, read the Word, and you know, and ask God if He's real, and see for yourself. You know.
Yeah. Now you're.
That'd be my advice to anybody in prison or out.
Okay. So read the Bible, get to know the Lord, pray, get a hold of people like Roger here,
Absolutely.
and make contact that way. Maintain contact with your family. Didn't your brother know somebody that shot a cop once and ended up in the life in pen?
Yeah.
We don't want to say names, but tell a little bit about that.
Well, when my brother was a teenager, he, you know, him and a couple of friends decided it would be cool to go out and join one of the gangs over there in Nampa. And then one day, one of his friends, you know, went and stole a car and got into a high pursuit chase and got pulled over by a cop and shot him.
The cop was like from Pad or something, wasn't it?
I can't remember. It was over 15 years ago. And so then it wasn't until about 2 years after his friend went to prison that we started receiving letters from him.
The friend?
Yes, saying that he had, you know, accepted Christ, you know, and just talked about how amazing just the feeling of being relieved of his sins, you know, and how refreshing it was for him, considering all the amount of trouble he had been into that led up to that experience, you know. And my brother, unfortunately, decided to take a different route and eventually got out of the gang, but moved up to McCall. And it wasn't until recently that he actually started going to church himself, you know.
But he's had his own business. Now, even though he's your whole brother, he's not my son, right?
He's my half-brother, but yeah.
Well, we don't, technicalities. He's still 100% brother, though, right?
Tit for tat, yeah.
And your sister, you know, she's your half-sister, she's your whole, you know, she's 100% sister, right?
Yes.
I had a half-sister, and I'd argue this thing, she's my sister. But they're not related to me.
Yeah. Now, one question I did have was how exactly, you know, do you start in with the message of, you know, forgiving the, you know, Jesus's
Who are you asking the question to, Jeremy?
What?
Which one are you asking the question to?
Roger.
Roger, okay. And what was the question specifically?
Well, as far as preaching the message of the forgiveness of sins.
My approach, the way I handle it, and everybody has a different approach, is that I go in there, win the trust of the people. And from that point on, you know, I read them the scriptures on what they're dealing with, and we study the scriptures and explain them to them. And at that point, you know, we can go from that point on. Some of them have gone on to become ministers. We have several of the inmates have gone on to become pastors. One has become an assistant superintendent of his denomination, a district superintendent. You know, and they were both into the drug culture, and they ran crack houses and stuff like that in the past. And now they're preaching the gospel. We have a lot of people who have come out. One of them is now the foreman of the business he joined, and making good money, raising his family now. Prison what it has done is it opened the door to these people to have time away from everything, all other influences, and have a chance to sit down and study the scriptures and make a decision on where they are at in their life walk and what direction they want to go when they get out.
And when you see something like that, you really feel like you told me this is the job you like the best, right?
Yes.
You're retired from your agricultural studies, and now you're growing seeds for God, right?
Yeah.
There's good seeds and there's bad seeds. 22
years in the Air Force and 15 years in the state, you know, in agriculture. And this is more fun.
That's good. Well, you know, there's
more rewarding.
There's good seeds we have in us. We have bad seeds, and it's what we water and we nurture that will grow into what we want to grow. Okay. I do want to take a chance to say thank you for my Boise State camera crew. Camera 1 is Chris. Is that right? Chris over there. Kelly's camera 2. Matt is, of course, my friend Matt, is 3. Floor director is Nick. Am I close? And of course, I do that because this is Spud TV. It's amateur TV. We're not competing with Channel 6. This time I'll say Channel 6. However, we do want to have some sense of professionalism. We are trying to always. Dr. Lowell, a German psychologist, once said, "It's better to have progress over perfection." If you were perfect, you didn't have to worry about practicing. But we want to grow in this like we do with everything else. we have the 2-minute warning. I do want to take a chance. I've worked in home health care as a this gentleman that had emphysema. He was 80 years old. He was perfect health, just bad lungs. Had a nurse come in, ragged him every time. He'd be sitting there with his cigarette smoking and taking his oxygen. And this nurse was ragging him. And then I went out to smokeless cigarettes. I don't smoke myself, but I think these are really unique. They have no tobacco in them. I don't know the consequences for smoking them. So someday I hope to have someone that represents them to make them. And maybe somebody from the Heart and Lung Association that would maybe talk about the benefits of these smokeless cigarettes. And we can think that like cities like Boise that says it's illegal to smoke in public places, to give it to American technology, and we come up with that idea of a smokeless cigarette. I want to thank the Boise State crew. Again, I'm John Cornett.
Dr. Roger Gibson.
Sean?
Sean Delisle.
Jeremy?
Cornet?
Okay. And thank you very much for visiting us at Spud TV. Everything in Idaho with butter on it or anything in Kuna with gravy.